for those who feel that they're kind of living in this environment, we're in 2020 when things are a bit crazy. What spiritual practices have been really beneficial for you in terms of grounding yourself, protecting yourself, and just keeping your vibration high?
Yeah. No, this year has definitely been a big challenge, to put it lightly. um, and so grounding, and just staying connected is really, really important. So one of the simplest things is really getting outside as much as possible. The sun is so powerful and so important, and just literally standing barefoot on the ground with arms up and palms up to the sun for a few minutes, that right there is one of the biggest calming and connective things that we can do. Taking some deep breaths with feet on earth, with hands up, receiving sunlight on the palms, that right there, that's just it's such a simple act, but it really, really, that's something that I do often. If you are in a place where you don't have access to putting your bare feet on the ground, you can actually, one of the things that we did, that my husband, shout out to him, the horticulture brother, he had put a nice bowl of dirt for me on our balcony. So I could just go out there and sit and actually put my feet in this bowl of dirt and, just connect with earth. One of the things that makes us, that hurts us as, so-called modern subjects, is our disconnection from the earth. One of the reasons why I am open, of course, to all forms of indigenous spirituality from around the world is that they're all explaining the same reality. We're all speaking about the same sun, the same moon, the same water, the same plants. We may call them different things. We may have different versions of them where we are, but ultimately we're describing the same reality. Whether we are calling it Pachamama as they do in Peru, or whether we're calling it Ileo Ageria Fokoyere in Yoruba, we're talking about the earth, right? The place from where our food springs, the place that holds us on her back. And so, being able to connect back, we live in these, boxes of cement and bricks and things that disconnect us. Many of us don't even know where our food is, coming from, where, we haven't put our hands in dirt. We haven't contributed to our own sustenance. That's one thing that we're very disconnected to. Most of us contribute nothing to our own sustenance besides making money, yes, but actually growing something, sowing something, something that goes directly onto us, we don't do that. We're not connected to it. And so, reconnecting with nature, the importance of that cannot be overstated. Sitting outside amongst trees, bringing plants into your house,
Yeah.
really trying to, increase that connection with living things and the living world. And that is a part of, really, big part of remaining connected and remaining grounded. Something else that I'm very big on is meditation. So I do a lot of meditation myself. I lead meditation after our prayer, during our prayer services every week. I think it's very, very important to just develop a practice of listening and of just, connecting again with our bodies and ourselves. Many times our world and our way of being has become so cerebral. We're up here, we're thinking and we're fingers and we're like, we're kind of in this mode. And so really that deep breathing down deep into your diaphragm. Ooh, let's take a deep breath now. Just really in, let your stomach expand. Ooh. And then pushing out through your mouth. More. 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 There's more. Ooh, push it all the way out. Most of us only breathe about a third to the half of the way into our lungs on each breath, right? We breathe very shallowly. We're up in this area of our shoulders. So breathing deeply really brings that oxygen flow, just sitting up straight and taking deep, intentional breaths and really pushing out all the stale air. Just that as a practice, so, so important. It shifts all of the energy in us, it renews us. Deep breathing, really, really important. um and so I came out actually earlier this year. The timing was beautiful. This is another testimony because I had been working on it for a long time and kind of beating myself up about the fact that it hadn't come out yet, but it was right on time for the climate of this year. A guided meditation album I came out with earlier this year, and to help introduce people to the energy of the Orisha as well as to the practice of meditation.
Ooh.
And so it's a meditation technique that I developed again when I was a grad student back at the Center for the Study of World Religions. I used to host meditation in person. They had a beautiful meditation room, and I had the privilege of hosting meditation there, small meditation groups for Black women in person, introducing many of them to the Orisha and also to this practice of visioning and meditation. So I love guided meditations. Um, and very much use that as a practice for myself. I'm also an attuned Reiki practitioner. And so, that's something else that I use. Reiki is a form of energy healing that comes out of Japan. And there are other versions of it that have more deeply incorporated African principles. That's actually something that I'm working towards doing as well. Because again, speaking about the same energy, chi is ashe. It's the same thing. It's
Yeah.
the energy that flows through everything. It's prana. It's all of those concepts. They are describing the same thing. And so it's, what we may call, in the Black church, laying hands, and various different traditions have different ways of describing this, but making oneself a channel for divine energy and helping to activate that same divine energy in another person is ultimately what Reiki is. And so all of those practices are ones that I use to help, ground myself and just keep my energetic field as high as possible, even things when things are tough.
Beautiful. We have Golden Brown Smith who says, sometimes when meditating or chanting, I feel lightheaded. What is this feeling?
Oh, well, you getting in there, girl. You connecting, right? It can really depend though. Sometimes just deep breathing can make us lightheaded because we're
Yeah.
so unused to really renewing ourselves, right? But typically a lightheaded feeling like that, and when we're engaged in a spiritual practice, is our energy being activated, right? When we breathe deeply and we really get in tune, it can give us this sensation of like almost floating or vibrating in our bodies. It's very powerful. It's very powerful, and so I think it's very, very important. And there are ways that we do it in Orisha practice. For example, when we sing, as shout out to my brother Oludari over at Kire Wellness, he talks about, Orisha breathing and kind of the connection between singing and breathing and breath, and how, that is one of the technologies that we used for breath control, right? Is singing and dancing and, working ourselves up to where we are breathing heavily and taking in and putting out lots of oxygen, right? That was a part of the process. Oh, thank you, Joy Mara. Blessings, blessings. Good to have you here. Yeah, and so again, we're connecting all to those same energies. Oya, right? The energy of the wind, the energy of the breath, of the bellows, of the lungs. That she is one of our divinities who, again, even thinking about the idea of being lightheaded, it's like, ooh, it's a swirling
Yeah.
energy. And so that's a part of her energy, right? And that's part of the energy that we're connecting to when we are working our breath, right? When we're working on deeply breathing and connecting. And so really, really, really powerful movement. Of course, dance, huge part, of African spirituality and also of various spiritualities around the world in terms of really connecting with the body and creating a transcendent experience that takes us out of our ego mind, right? And just connects us to the collectiveness that is all. And that's what I'm surprised, that's the idea of spirit possession as well, right? Being able to transcend your conscious ego mind and allow another state of being to, wash over and take over. Nothing like having that experience. Give thanks. Yes, Kundalini yoga, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. All of these body practices of movement and breath, right? Really, really, really important for connecting us into all of our energies, all of our energetics.
So, Sister Funlayo, you mentioned about the practices that you've been using to get through this time. But I'd also like to just pick your brains on what are your thoughts on even what's happening right now and why the world has suddenly kind of done this whole kind of 360. Do you have any insight on that as a battler for us?
Yeah, well, one thing as Obatala, as the one who formed this place, I will tell you that there's nothing new that's happening, right? There's nothing new that's happening, and things are still much improved than they were at many other points in time. It human beings, the Yoruba say, "Tibitire la daile aye," that it is loss and gain that make the world. So loss and gain have always been there. The Ajogun, the left hand forces of the universe that are the opponents of life, such as death, sickness, those things that we say kosi and we push away. Those things have been here since the beginning of time. Arum, disease, has been here since the beginning of time. So there's nothing new that's really happening in the world. Ethnic conflict has been here since the beginning of time. All of the things that are happening have been here. And so that is why every culture has developed ethical systems, right? Because without them, things devolve into chaos. Without the ethical imperatives, without the understanding of the fact that we are doing something beyond trying to eat and survive till the next day, without that, we don't understand exactly how to get along together as people or what even the purpose of that is. And so every culture has developed these systems of saying, wait a minute, let's help us reconnect to our God self. Let's help us to reconnect to Emmy, to that divine part of ourselves, and not devolve into the chaos that the human condition of being physical beings who, yes, do need to eat and do need a place to lay their heads, causes us to have conflict and chaos. And so even going back to the Odus of Ifa, to our holy scriptures, there's war, there's disease, there's chaos, there's killing, there's everything that's happening in the world now is in there. And that's one of the reasons why those stories are so resonant for us, is because it's like, wow, they're talking about the same things we're talking about. There's been jealousy, there's been underhandedness, there's been deceit, there's been enslavement. All of these things have existed. It's just that now a couple of things have happened that make it different. One, of course, we have digital technology that brings these things into our faces 24 hours a day, where that wasn't necessarily the case before. And so now is, and keeps us connected as well to every single person that we've ever been connected to, right? Who might have naturally fallen off of our radar, right? Through disconnection, which naturally happens over time as human beings. Our brains are designed to forget things so that new information can be assimilated, because there's but so much information that we're able to integrate at a time, most people. But now the connection and the digitization of life has kept made it so that we're connected to everybody. It's like your friend from second grade who you haven't seen, like you're still Facebook friends. So now you know about every tragedy happening in her life too, where at a certain point in time you wouldn't have known that. right? So the point is that we're in this sort of anxiety overload because we're getting so much input. And that's what makes it feel like things are really devolving in a way. As far as, of course, the racial tensions and things like that, again, that was never anywhere. It was always here. And so now what we're seeing is the pushback against the revolution that really is happening. The fact that people are saying enough. We're not going to accept European knowledge as being the pinnacle of all knowledge anymore. We're not going to accept European culture as being the center of everything anymore. We're not going to accept that. And of course, as Frederick Douglass said, power doesn't concede anything without a struggle. So you're going to have a struggle when that point comes that you say, no, we're not accepting this anymore. Everything changes, right? Kingdoms rise and fall. Ancient Egypt never thought it was going to fall, but it did, right? Greece, Rome, all, the Mali Empire, the Songhai, everything goes in those cycles. And so we're seeing the natural shifting of cycles. And I, personally, I pray we see even more of it. Not in a violent or chaotic way, but in a way of reawakening and really truly coming to understand what we're here for and how to accomplish it in a better way with one another.
Beautiful, beautiful. We have Alternative Grey who says, what are your opinions on practicing African spiritualism in the digital era? Has the internet been helpful, harmful, or just a virtual space for what is already practiced?
Great question. Great question. This is actually something that I've written about. Um, as with everything, right? TBT la daile aye, loss and gain. There's been positivity and negativity um, uh, on both sides. And not only for the Orisha tradition, but for every tradition. Of course, the biggest, I would say that it's definitely been more helpful than harmful, hands down, across the board, because there are so many people who otherwise would not have been able to connect. Me myself, the internet is a part of what has helped me to connect and learn and connect to the people that I ultimately ended up becoming my elders. And so definitely as a tool, it is really, really important to, understand that tools are just that they can always be used for good or ill. Water can drown somebody or it can boil your rice, right? So any tool can be used for good or ill. And so I think that, again, overall, I would say technology has definitely been great, especially now that we're in this time, when we've been in time of lockdown, when we've been in time of disconnection. A lot of my ministry has been digital even before this, because I understood that, because of various patterns of disbursement, Orisha tradition and ancestral traditions were more accessible in larger cities, places like New York, Miami, etc. And so I wanted to reach people who weren't in those places, right? Who were saying who wanted to be able to find out about African spirituality, but didn't have access to somebody who was there physically. And so, Ashe Ire, which is now my Orisha temple, started off as a blog back 10 years ago, in
Oh,
2010, just to share the information that I was learning in grad school, and, to share different things about the Orisha, to share my own journey. And, so that really was the start of my kind of digital presence, and, making a little YouTube videos here and there and things like that, to really open up the way and make it so that people who are not in physical vicinity to one another are able to come together. And so I think that, and again, this is not only through in the Orisha community, many different communities are using the internet in this really powerful way. And I think voices that formerly would not have had the space, in a traditional journalistic space to be heard, are being heard now. So of course, Black women's voices are huge presences, in blogs and vlogs and podcasts and things like that. So I think it's been really beautiful in that regard. Of course, the drawback has been that anybody can put anything out there, right? Anybody can
yeah.
anything on the internet and hit send, and somebody else can read it and think that that's the gospel. And so, it's just made it important to vet your sources. And I think that it's one of the things that, and I wrote about this actually in an article for Cross Currents magazine about our practice now in this digital age, that there is this system of checks and balances, right? So that even though, yeah, you can put anything out there, but at the same time, when you put something out there, you're now calling back for scrutiny on yourself. And so, especially in this age of, receipts and dragging and, all of that kind of stuff, if you say something crazy, folk gonna be able to go back and pull it up like, oh, word, like, yeah, this is what you're talking about, right, Danielle? Discernment is crucial. That's why we say our good black sense is our first divination tool. And so discernment, it just makes it so that, we absolutely have to discern. But again, it's not even that hard to do that in this day and age, right? If somebody's saying something, you can just look up their name and see if there's some crackpot who that's the only thing they ever wrote, or if they have a presence that's been long lasting. So there's ways, and we just have to, do our due diligence the same way we would if we were meeting and vetting people in person, to be able to say, oh, who is this person? Who are your people to him? Understanding too that that African spirituality is communal, right? So anybody who works by themselves completely, who doesn't want to answer questions about who they learned from, who their lineage is, and things like that, that's a red flag, because that's not our way. Africans are all about community. We're all about working together. We're all about giving props and giving honor to where our information has come from, honoring our teachers and all of that. And so, those are some of the things that can help alert you to someone who is not genuine, is someone who doesn't do that. Someone who may not have, community connections, someone who you're not able to verify through other people, same way you would if you're meeting anybody in person.